Greetings, church family. I want to share a couple things with you today. First, I want to share with you a lesson that I learned while weeding the garden this morning. I woke up early. It was a nice morning and went outside and did some chores and then made my way out to where I have my corn planted. There, where the corn is planted, I also planted some pumpkins to grow in between the corn rows. There's two sections of corn that I planted. The first one is a section of new corn, corn seeds that had been purchased this year. They all came up together. They're beautifully lush, and I think all but two kernels germinated and did well. Everything else, all but those two, did well in that section. The rest of the corn area was two packages of older corn that had sat around for a couple of years, and they had somewhere around a 50 to 60% germination. Some still came up, but it's pretty spotty and it's pretty spread out. Now the pumpkins will enjoy that when they get to those areas. They'll have more sun, but I wish I had a little bit more corn. It had been a couple weeks since I weeded my corn patch, and so the weeds were getting out of control. But I noticed a few things as I went row to row and area to area. I noticed, first of all, that as I already said, I noticed that the corn that had been fresh seeds had germinated better, but I also noticed a second thing. I noticed that those areas where the corn was strongest and densest, the weeds weren't doing as well. There were some weeds growing in between those corn plants, but they were not quite as deep green, and they were trying desperately to reach the sun, and it was very easy to reach down and pull those weeds out because they hadn't rooted as deeply as those in between the corn plants that had been weaker and not as densely planted. This reminded me of a couple things. First, we need to remember that our lives need to be filled with good things. I had some corn seed that wasn't quite as high quality, that wasn't quite as vigorous, and because of that, those areas of my garden aren't quite as healthy. And I was thinking about this. What kind of things am I putting into my life? Am I putting into my life and allowing into my mind strong things that will make me spiritually vigorous? Or am I planting things in my life that are a little bit more anemic and weak? Second, am I filling my life with good things to the degree that it will choke out some bad things? If you want your life to be full of good things, and if you want the things that are damaging to your spiritual life to fade away, be intentional with filling your life and be intentional with seeking after those things that will choke out the bad things. It's a replacement idea. Don't just focus on getting rid of the weeds. Focus on filling your life with things that will press out those things that are damaging to you. So those are a couple of thoughts that I had this morning as I weeded my corn and pumpkin patch. Fill your life with good stuff and fill it to the point where the bad stuff is pressed out of your life. None of us want things that are damaging in our lives. Let's fill our hearts and our minds, our thought life, with good things. The second thing I want to mention today is that this Sabbath we are planning to gather for the first time since February. It's been a while since we have gathered for worship. Now, it won't be the same type of gathering. It won't be the same experience that we're used to, that we have had for years in the past. It will be different. First of all, it's going to be outside. We're going to be meeting outside where the fresh air will be a blessing to us. And fortunately, we're at a time of year where we can do that comfortably. You know, it's not winter. It's not the heat of summer. And plus we have a beautiful backyard where we can get together and we can spend that time worshiping outside. We also need to be aware that because of government regulations and because we care for each other and value each other's health, we're going to maintain that social distancing between family groups. So just be aware that handshaking, hugs, things like that are not really an option right now according to the government guidelines, and because of health and safety reasons. That's just the way it's going to be right now. We have guidelines that we need to follow. We also, the government has said that we need to wear masks. If you don't have your own mask, we have some that will be provided. You're welcome to grab one of those and put it on. We can still sing, we can still talk, we can still share through those masks. And I know that is an inconvenience. It just is. It's frustrating and it can be annoying. And if that's a huge problem, we will be posting these online, these worship services online. And I'm sorry that we have to do this. It's just what we have to live with right now. And so be aware of that. Social distancing, masks, they'll be provided for you if you don't have one. I just hope that this time of worship will be a blessing. I want to mention as well that the Sabbath, because we will be meeting outside, that if you have a lawn chair, bring that along. It'll be the most comfortable way to sit outside on the lawn for our worship service. So bring that along if you have lawn chairs for you, for your family. If you don't have a lawn chair, that's okay. We do have metal folding chairs that will be available. We can help you get that out there. And also next week, the following week, if you need a metal folding chair, be aware we will be sanitizing those used chairs in between. So if you happen to sit on one in the future, just know that we will be intentionally making sure that those areas of the church and of our facility, the chairs as well, that are used each week will be sanitized in between each service. So that is something that you need to be aware of. Lawn chairs, if you don't have that, we have metal folding chairs. Also, we won't be having a printed bulletin. So when you walk into the church lobby on your way through the lobby to the backyard, don't expect a bulletin. There will be a table there with masks and hand sanitizer, things like that you can partake of, but there will not be a bulletin in order to limit that hand-to-hand contact. But we will be sending out the pertinent information in our weekly newsletter on Friday. So be keeping an eye out for that newsletter that comes out each Friday, as it has been for months and months and months, and that will have all the information that you need for our church community, for the activities that we have going on, for the community, wider community information that we put in there every week. Also, there's another item as well. There may be a need for a restroom while you're here. Though we are meeting outside, we will have our restrooms available in the church. We ask that no more than 2 people are in a restroom at a time, just to kind of keep that distance in place. So be aware that as you wait for restrooms, check to see how many are in the restroom before you head in. Respect that guideline, please, and I thank you for doing that, for loving each other enough to respect that, and also respecting the government's guidelines to follow that. We're called to be good citizens, and it's just an inconvenience, and it's not a religious liberty issue. We're just following what the government has said. This is what we need to do. Worship will be at 11:30 Sabbath morning here at the church in the backyard. So plan on that. We're doing it at 11:30, a little bit later than normal, so that our Zoom Sabbath schools, we have several Zoom Sabbath schools meeting, so that our Zoom Sabbath schools can have their full experience, and then you all can make it out to the church if you'd like to after that. So 11:30. If there is a guideline of 100 people outside for this gathering, so this Sabbath we'll be watching that number. If there are more than 100 of us that gather this Sabbath, the next week we will plan on having 2 worship experiences, one earlier in the morning and then another one later in the morning at 11:30 again. So we'll just be aware of that. We'll be watching that to see how we need to adjust for the next Sabbath as we move forward. Just a little insight into why I believe that these guidelines are necessary to follow. First of all, we're called to be good citizens and to follow the guidelines of our government. Also, though, one of our neighbor communities in La Grande, there was a sister church over there, not Adventist, but a church family over there who gathered for worship, didn't take the precautions that are given, and because of that, the latest number I've just read is 219 people have now tested positive in La Grande as a result of this service, as a result of this gathering. This virus is out there, and no, not everybody comes down seriously ill and dies because of it. If it did, it actually wouldn't spread very fast, because if everybody who gets it passed away, it wouldn't go anywhere. But our elderly and our immunocompromised friends and family need our protection. We have a responsibility outside of ourselves. We have a responsibility outside of me and my little family. I want to take care of everyone else, especially the vulnerable among us. That is a biblical principle, to care for those who need extra care. And so because of that, we can still gather for worship. I praise God that we can do that, but we do need to take some steps to care for those who are more vulnerable among us. And those who are more vulnerable might actually surprise you. This virus hits people strongly that you would not expect it. It's just the way it is. And so, there will come treatment at some point, whether through a vaccine or other treatment that will at some point, diminish the risk and allow us to continue to move forward in society. But until then, we just have some steps that we need to take in order to gather. If we want to gather, these are the steps that we have to take. We have to maintain that social distancing. We need to wear masks. We need to make sure that our proximity is guarded. And we also need to find new ways of greeting each other that still expresses our love without our physical contact. So that's just how it is. I hope that those two thoughts, the thought from my weeding of my corn patch this morning, as well as the thought that we can once again gather. I hope that you've been blessed by this. I hope that you've been encouraged, and I hope that the Sabbath, if you choose to gather with the church family, I hope that you are drawn closer to Jesus because of this. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, send me a message, give me a call here at the church, and I'll get back with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this Sabbath. Once again, if you aren't able to gather with us, my goal is to once again record still, to record and upload our worship service, our sermon portion, so that you can partake of that and be blessed by some time in the Word of God. May God bless you to this day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you.